So DJ, you had gotten to the point where you realized that there was an opportunity that awaited you in real estate. What was that next step in seizing that opportunity?
So there was a couple things I did. One, I continued to work at Gallup for a significant amount of time because I love the people I work with. It was a great opportunity. And this was like a pet project that I worked on the weekends and the evenings and when I wasn't doing my full time job because I wanted a proof of concept. I wanted to say, hey, if I'm going to step out and do this, I want it to work. And so I just built it in the background. It became what I was obsessed about when I was not working. And by doing that, it gave me the opportunity to make mistakes, not to have to put all my eggs in one basket. And it allowed me to perfect a system that could eventually scale once I had the time to do it. And that's what I did for a long time. And as a consultant, as you know, you travel a lot. So I was on boats, planes, and trains every week going around the country working with healthcare clients. And we were about to have my first child, or our first child, I should say. And that timing lined up perfect with me saying, I don't want to be the dad who misses all those first child things or even second child things. And so I said, now is my opportunity. And what we decided to do is we decided to live off one person's income because my wife was working full time at the time and I was working full time. And so we said, hey, we're going to start living off my wife's income to help us. And then that way, once I decided to go full time, even if I didn't make any money or it failed, I would give myself a year to figure it out before I started to repivot. And that's what we did. And it worked out.
So you would acquire properties prior to quitting.
We acquired properties, but we weren't holding any properties at that time. We had mastered the process of buying a property, renovating it, and then selling it in order to generate income.
There's so many things that I want to unpack there, but I got to attack a few of them. The first is I hate when people recommend that people just like leap and a net will appear. You got to sacrifice everything. You got to put yourself out there with no safety net. That is BS. And it is much easier to launch and sustain something when you have some reserves. The second thing is it is completely okay to use that W-2 job to supplement something that you plan to do and build it up to the point where it's easier to leave. And the third thing, we've had this conversation with friends of ours who want to jump into entrepreneurship, and I try to tell them it's a different lifestyle. You built yourself to the point where, and thankfully you didn't have to, but you had built a career to the point where, let's say that it didn't work out. You could have jumped right back into that career, right? There's something to be said about putting yourself in a situation before you take the leap where you don't have to just say, oh, if this doesn't work out, I have nothing to go back to. I love the way that you did that. But the last thing, and this is what I'd like you to touch on even further, people have no idea how hard it is to get financing for anything when you don't have a W-2 job. Can you talk about how having a salary, either for yourself or for your wife or just your wife, made it a little easier to have some entree into real estate?
It made all the difference. So there's a couple things and a couple pieces of the story that I probably didn't fully highlight. But when I was starting the real estate journey, I didn't start by myself. I actually had a business partner who had already done a couple deals. So like I was using his playbook and we were working together, right? And so it was a situation where I was working with somebody along the way. I was only in the game 50% of it, and he was 50%. And so we had the double coverage of, okay, we both mess it up, then we both have some support, right? And so that was huge there. And his expertise mixed with my expertise helped us and allowed us to do different things. But then the other part about it is that the W-2 was so significant because when I started in real estate, this was during the time when the real estate market had crashed. And so it wasn't the real estate market that we know today where everybody wants to be in real estate and you have bigger pockets, you have YouTube, you have all these things where you can get all this information. It was kind of no man's land and people were just trying to figure out what to do. People were licking their wounds who had lost a lot of money, and houses that you see now that are $1 million houses could have probably been sold for 250 or 300. And so it wasn't the panacea that everybody envisions now. It was much more scary. And banks didn't want to lend to you unless you had income. And so for a long time, my W-2, along with my wife's W-2, was the thing that allowed us to get loans, the thing that allowed us banks to finance us. In addition to that, I remember one of the houses that we purchased after I went solo was only in my wife's name because I didn't have any income. I had a lot of debt, not consumer debt, but real estate debt related to the business. And it just made sense to put in her name because she didn't have a lot of debt and she had a W 2. And so they were able to do the loan with no problem. And so those things are so helpful as you think about stepping out there into the unknown. The other part that people don't talk about is not just the financing of it, but it's the ability to be able to breathe. One thing that you have to know is when you start your own business or you do something where the income is not a steady income stream, it's an inconsistent income stream, and you don't know when and if you're going to get paid, you do not have the ability to make mistakes. And you are forced to make bad decisions if the income comes in later than you expect, whether it be selling something of value too soon, which I've done numerous times, or not having the ability to ride a storm or be grounded in a storm and let it pass through. And so that's so important that you have to have a foundation where you either have a huge reserve or you have continuous income when you start anything entrepreneurial.
There's a concept that one of the people who mentored me calls tuition into the school of experience. And you're paying, right? This is not a benefit. Getting experience in the field of your choice, it costs you something, either financially, mentally, whether it's stress. You've done some things that this was a mistake that happened to you, but it had to happen to you. It needed to happen to you for you to get that experience you needed to move forward. What's an example of some tuition that you paid into the school of experience?
A lot of sleepless nights, right? But I think the thing was delayed gratification. I think that was the tuition because when I left and I look at some of my colleagues, and some of my colleagues have gone on to do phenomenal things, I took a lot of steps back. And when I say not back, steps to the side in order to take a huge step forward. And that was delayed gratification with the cars we drove, with the way we invested, with the vacations we took, and stuff like that. But it allowed me to put myself in a position where now it's a lot easier to say if I want to upgrade, I have the ability or luxury to. The other thing when you talk about tuition was I missed out on so many different opportunities that could have taken me to a new level financially because I didn't spend enough time educating myself and getting better at my craft because I was so focused on the day to day. Right. And so it was the duality of, yes, the day to day has to get done, but not understanding the higher game that's being played in the real estate world made me miss out on opportunities because, again, I sold assets too early. I missed out on good opportunities that would have paid off great dividends. And as I look back, I'm not mad or sorry about those things, but hindsight's always 2020. And I just see where those experiences now have shaped me, where I look at the market very differently.